Welcome back and a good afternoon at the DigitALL Public Conference 2021. We had some hiccups with the connectivity before, but now we are safe. We are safe and we are all here. And we have a fantastic guest, Nils. Welcome, great you made it here.
Thank you so much, glad to be here.
This was an energetic start because what he does, he says once only. And he doesn't say it only once, but he says it many times because that's his business. We spoke about user centricity, about making difference for people on the ground, and the once only principle is a massive, big principle just on user centricity. But what you do, you turn it into a practical reality through the once only technical system. Tell us everything about it. One word before, Nils is a colleague from the European Commission. His name is Nils McGrath, but we say Nils McGrip because he has an iron grip, and you will discover why.
Wow, that was a tough introduction to follow. Very good. So indeed, I'm very pleased to be here with you to talk a little bit about the once-only principle. So indeed, my name's Nils McGrath, and I'm working with Digit. And in the context of the implementation of that once-only principle, I lead a work package on user centricity. So this is one of many work packages, because as we've seen today, it takes many different types of skills and many types of people to try and build and implement these ambitious projects as a big group. And I'm joined today by a number of my colleagues. And I'd like to first take a moment to let them introduce themselves. Maybe starting with Hettel. Hettel, are you there? Good afternoon.
I am. Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Hettel Varik. I work in also in the Commission in DG GROW on the implementation of the once-only technical system. So I'm mainly coordinating the works across Commission and across member states to get this technical system up and running eventually.
Fantastic, thank you. Indeed, we'll keep the introduction short because we want to get to the content and we know we only have 20 minutes. So straight over to you, Christine. Hello, Christine, can you hear us?
Hello, hi, Nils. Yeah, I hear you well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Right. So I'm a colleague of Hettel's. I'm working in DG Connect. So we're three director generals that are involved: DG Digit, DG Grow, DG Connect. And I'm following the project on behalf of DG Connect because for us, the once only principle is very, very important. It's one of our key principles for e-government. It's also enshrined in our e-government action plan that came to an end at the end of last year. And it will certainly be important for our future policy. So I'm following the project from that policy perspective.
Wonderful, thank you, Christine. And last but certainly not least, we have Bart from Belgium. Bart, good afternoon, can you hear us?
Yeah, good afternoon, thanks for having me. Working for the federal government in Belgium, and I'm the coordinator for the work package 4, which is about, well, semantic models.
Wonderful, we look forward to hearing a little more about that shortly. Okay, let's try and give a little bit of an introduction, a little bit of an overview and understanding of what this once-only principle is all about. So maybe let's take it from a user's perspective. Hettel, maybe first of all to you, tell us what's going to be different for people, what's going to be different for citizens come 2024 once we have
implemented. That's a very good question, Nils. I think the once-only principle as such is actually a reality in quite a few member states already. I myself come from Estonia, so it's perhaps the easiest for me to give an example from my home country, where all the different Estonian registries are linked up with this system called X-Road solution, which operates kind of as the once-only layer. And the citizens can subtract its data from any registry and reuse it either in a public procedure or a private purpose, so wherever it is needed. But there is a good stance, I would say, of the once-only principle also in several other countries. From the top of my head, the Netherlands, also Austria, but as well Slovenia, and a lot of countries are working actually really hard on getting their once-only systems up and running and improving the existing systems. But bringing your question to the single digital gateway regulation context, then we're currently building, together with the member states, the once only technical system. And that indeed aims to bring the once only principle out of the national borders and make it thrive also in the cross-border situations. So in 2024, I hope I could maybe take up an additional master's in one of the Dutch or Belgium or French universities by signing up with my Estonian EID, and no one would even consider looking me weird if I wish to sign up and register by using a digital evidence or a digital identity. So hopefully this will be a reality in 2024 in many other areas also.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you for that introduction. So indeed, if we have these online procedures, and a great example that you used about applying for a master's degree. So in the future, come 2024, people are going to be able to authenticate with their EIDs to a portal in a different country. And then instead of having to upload the evidences themselves and find documents and go and get documents from different public administrations, they're going to be able to simply click a button, right? And those evidences will be retrieved from the different providers or the sources of those evidence and make that user journey of actually going through that procedure so much easier. Okay, so with that as a context and with that as an ambition for 2024, how do we think about once only in the long term? So if we're talking about exchanging maybe documents and some structured data come 2024, how do we think about the once only principle in the long term? Maybe that's a good question for Christine at DG Connect.
Hello, yeah, thank you very much. I think there are two angles to it. On the one hand, we must say that the once only principle is much wider than the technical system that we're now establishing. Because what we are primarily looking at now is a system to exchange evidence, whereas the once only principle as principle has more this general idea of making the journey, as you just said, Nils, as easy as possible for the user, not requesting the user to submit the same evidence over and over and over again. But it can also mean, this can also be realized by different means. We see many member states already use refilling as a means of making it easier to do online forms, which is not covered by our system. So the once only principle can be translated into very many different technical solutions. When we look at the one that we have here now, the once only technical system, at the moment, we are strongly focused on the single digital gateway. So we are developing this system so that the single digital gateway can use it perfectly for the Annex 2 procedures. And we hope that once this system is in place and it works very well for the Annex 2 procedure, the next step would naturally be to hook on more procedures, to hook on more use cases that are within the general idea of the single digital gateway regulation, namely that I want to do a certain legal process. I want to request a certain service, possibly abroad, and I will need to fetch documentation, evidence, some kind of data from a different member state. So this system will grow with this initial idea in mind over the course of more years. But actually, from the perspective of Connect and Digit for sure, I know that we also have in mind that this system as a technical system is not restricted to serve for evidence exchange requested by users. So we know that there could be a completely different future for this system, because once it is in place and once we have enough use cases to show that it's really a functioning, a good system that connects administrations all over Europe in an easy way, these administrations could use that pathway for other things that are not necessarily embedded in a usage scenario with users. For example, this could be a key enabler for a future public sector database. But this is speaking really the long future. I think what we need to concentrate on, and we very rightly do so, is making the single digital gateway work, making the evidence exchange work, and making sure that we can spread the word so that more and more services can use this system.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we're starting to really understand what's happening in the near term and in the longer term. So it's all about evidence exchange. It's all about making the user journey simpler for the citizen or the business. So let's go back to this concept of evidence and what it is that we mean, and let's dig in a little bit there. And maybe, Bart, you can tell us a little bit about the evidence that's going to be exchanged through this system. I guess evidence comes in all sorts of shapes, sizes, and formats. How is the work that's ongoing in Work Package 4, so that's building on the work within ISA², how is that enabling that reality of exchanging evidence across borders for these procedures?
Well, as already mentioned, they come in all sorts of shapes and forms. So we try to make a very easy to process format for it. So basically, we see that we're now in a transition of, let's say, the more document-based, somewhat unstructured evidences, and we try to make it more towards the machine processable, the machine readable, more structured formats. The goal is, of course, that we do not have to process them manually. We have the computers, so they're supposed to work for us instead of we work for them. But it's a bit work in progress. So we really want to move forwards in that area and make sure that as many types of evidence will be available as machine readable and semantic annotated formats.
Okay, interesting. So we've got a scenario where we're dealing with documents, kind of old school versions of electronic documents, but we're increasingly moving towards structured data. Apart from simply evidence exchange, what kind of opportunities open up for member states delivering public services when we start to restructure the data? Maybe again, Bart, if we could ask you the question. How do you see that?
Well, for public administrations, it's all about being more efficient, of course. Instead of having to process paper documents, the public servants can spend more time on helping people or doing other tasks that are more interesting. Also, the public services themselves may actually reuse some of the work that's now being done at the European level. So it's not always about scaling things up, it's sometimes also on scaling things down to a more, well, maybe the regional level. And for the citizens, of course, there's a lot of benefits to gain from. So if you're interested in studying abroad, or for example, a master in Belgium, that should be possible without any barrier, let's say. Today, we're used to shop abroad. So if I shop online, I'm used to, well, to basically ignore any borders. Maybe I buy a computer in France that's being delivered by a Dutch provider. I don't care. I don't know. And that's the whole point of it, so that you can basically ask the same type of service across borders for what we call public services, as we now used to deal with private companies.
Wonderful. Okay. A really interesting point you make, that, of course, the more that we can digitize things, the more we have humans available to actually help people. You know? Okay. Now that we're starting to get a handle on the evidence that's going to be exchanged via the system, let's go back and think about the system as a whole again. So how is this evidence going to be exchanged? So maybe the question to you, Hettel. We've talked about CEF building blocks a little bit in prior presentations. So can you tell us a little bit about how the CEF building blocks are actually enabling evidence exchange in the context of this once-only technical system?
Great question. Because building a cross-Europe evidence exchange platform tool might seem in the beginning like mission impossible. How do you get everyone to do the same thing in the same manner, or a similar thing in the same manner? And I think here the building blocks really become very helpful and handy, because they already unify, if I may express this way, to quite an extent, certain routine procedures, or let's say steps that all would need to put in place in view to be able to exchange reliable data securely and safely. And the once-only technical system actually reuses several of the existing building blocks already, like it reuses e-delivery for secure evidence exchange. It reuses eIDAS access nodes that the European citizens could use their national eIDs, which we also mentioned already when they want to access online services from another European country. And well, hopefully by 2024, once only itself will operate as a building block for any other interested authority outside or inside of the SDG scope to reuse the once only concept.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Listen, we're already running out of time. I could talk about once only, as Max said, for the rest of the afternoon, but I'm aware that we have a time limitation. So I'm going to ask just one more question, if I may. Christine, maybe to you. In terms of new technology, you know, we live in a world where new technology is rapidly disrupting the old world, and I suppose one of the big challenges that the Commission has is that balancing act between technology that works today and then thinking about how to incorporate technology in the future. How do you think about that at DG Connect, and how do you think about technology in or to enable the once-only principle over the medium and long term?
That's a very good question. That is our daily task, actually. So I think Hettel already gave half the answer to it, because we are not building this system in isolation. We're using existing building blocks, and we're picking the whole building blocks and the whole set of technological solutions we offer together. And this set is being revised continuously, and we will keep doing this on the technical part. But the technical is only one part of the things, because we also noticed that new kinds of solutions are emerging. Like we noticed now with the mobile. I think at the beginning, people underestimated the effect that the use of mobile devices would have on people's engagement with, for example, public authorities. So I think something else will probably happen in the future as well. We'll have a new trend, we'll have a new movement, and we have to come to terms with it and make sure that our system also works in this new usage paradigm. And that is our task at Connect, and we're following that up very closely with member states. We have the dedicated SDG coordination group, but we also have a coordination group on e-government that helps us identify new challenges, new opportunities, and that helps us sort of also understand how we need to adjust, adapt, and change the way we approach these new opportunities. So since we have this mechanism in place, I'm actually rather optimistic that also for the once-only technical system, we will be able to keep up to date and grasp new opportunities.
Fabulous, fabulous. It's great to hear. Thank you very much, Christine. Because it's such an interesting topic, I think it's actually inspired our moderators. And Jen, I think, has a question for one of the panel.
Yeah, it's not actually from me, it's from our audience. I've got a couple of questions. I'm going to put it to you, Nils, and then you can throw it on to whoever you want. The question is, how good is the Commission at applying the once-only principle? Does it put its money where its mouth is?
I can see that my panelists are all putting their hands up, keen to answer that question. Maybe because you look inspired. Hettel, maybe I'll ask you first. What's your view?
Well, it's a brilliant question, really. I would say that indeed the Commission does try to put in practice their own teaching, though maybe we're still in the process of getting there as the situation also for the member states. But it's really increasingly more on the picture in the Commission areas as well. And you know, Commission used to be a very working in very much in silos, and that approach is also coming apart a bit, and the once only helps in working cross silos with DGs as well.
Well said. I think
Hettel, can I muscle in this one? It's Max here speaking. I abuse the situation that I'm close to the moderators here. I love what you said, because what you said essentially is that we have not been very good. We have not been very good at that, but at least we try. And what I love about it, about this discussion that you are having here, that it is a demonstration that actually the various departments within the Commission finally join forces, and they forcefully join forces. And not only that, that within the Commission we try to do that, and all of you are a living example of that, and I love your energy behind of that, but you also do it with the member states, because none of us can do this alone. And the testimonial that we get from Belgium, and we hear from others, is the fact that this is something that can only be built together. So we are not yet there, we are not yet good, but I think it was never as positive, the outlook. Sorry.
Thank you, Max, for your intervention. We are sort of rapidly running out of time. We did have another question from the audience asking whether our panelists think the governments are ready to share their data with businesses to enable them to provide services based on the once-only principle. I think that's a big discussion, probably one that will not start now, because we could talk about that again for days. Nils, thank you very much. Any closing comments?
No, I suppose I'm just echo what Max says. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we really are striving to work together across the Commission and with the different types of people that we have in the member states. So we have the user centricity work packet, we have the technical design, we have people who have expertise in structuring data. And it's not easy, but every day we learn to work with each other better and better. We learn to understand each other better and better. And we really hope come 2024 that we can really make a big difference for a lot of people. So yeah, that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Great moderating. Thank you as well, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for our panelists, for your insights. Greatly appreciated, and also for sticking to time, because we are going to take a short break. But before we do, let me remind you, we did have some technical difficulties earlier on, but just to reassure anyone who did miss it, that the Learning from Successes panel is going to be available online, so you can watch it back. There's no need to miss anything over the 3 days. All these recorded videos will all be available. We're going to take a break now. We will be back at 3:30 Central European Time to look at our next panel, which is going to be looking at beyond the EU borders and what's going to happen. While you're on that break, either stretch, take a coffee, or use the platform to network with your fellow participants. We'll see you shortly.